During COVID, we have seen there were a lot of the supply chain disruptions, not getting the materials from China, for example, towards Europe and the US. And we have seen a lot of corrections now done by companies in order to avoid these kind of disruptions in the future. So that could be dual sourcing or onshoring or having higher stock levels, for example, in our local markets, so let's say US and Europe. And on top of that, during COVID, we also saw a labor scarcity, and that continues even after COVID. So a lot of complexity has been added, I would say, in the supply chain, and specifically also in the intralogistics. And we try to a bit of explore today about how warehouse automation could help to address those complexities.
The COVID crisis, even a container ship that has blocked the Suez Canal for something around a week, and of course the war in Ukraine since 1 year. All these events have put a lot of pressure in the supply chain, especially because of the rise of transportation costs, but also the availability of raw materials. And of course, these events are not the only factors. There are many other factors. We can name also what Pieter was mentioning, the lack of manpower available, especially for the low added value tasks.
Till today, yeah.
And the overall change of the consumer behaviors. Example of the e-commerce boom at the COVID, and that is continuing. We can still see a high volume of orders, a high volume of returns of goods, which are putting a lot of pressure on the businesses. If we talk about deliveries, for example, we used to, as consumers, expect deliveries within few weeks. Then it has become within a week, and now it's within 24 hours.
Or the same day sometimes even, yeah.
The same day. If we look historically about the production, at the beginning of the industrial era, we were doing high customization and quite low volume of production. Then we went into very high volume of production by standardizing a lot, and now we are shifting back to kind of high customization but keeping the high volume of production. So that's all these reasons that now businesses need to look at their intralogistic processes. It becomes mandatory to anticipate any type of disruptions, to adapt to the market changes, to have like really optimized processes. So I would say that warehouses and distribution centers should not be now only areas of cost optimization, but mostly strategic assets where they need to be agile and resilient.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, what you mentioned with these global events, a lot of companies got introduced to the concept of automation because simply they had no other choice. Trying to figure out how to continue operations with a lot of disruptions in their operation. Previously, they were a bit skeptical and possibly thinking that would be much more longer-term investment. Now, you see more and more that in the market, the automation is actually starting to become commonplace. Now that they have been introduced to these concepts and the huge benefits of that, it's here to stay for sure.
Yeah. Yes, I think automation in warehouses is now essential. When we look at the past, yes, there were warehouses only simply to store goods, and now there's much more potential in the warehouses and also for the customer to make or break a customer's relationship with their end customers. And also what you mentioned, that they are still a little bit more reluctant and hesitating because, yes, investments are expensive. They are complex and also in somehow risky. But if you just think about doing nothing at the beginning, initially it would cost, of course, zero. But in a long run, it would also mean that there are hidden costs for the for stock outs, for example, low service levels, but also unhappy customers that should be prevented and would be fatal for the business, right?
I mean, what you see is that quite often there is this sound of a automation solution, standardized, one size fits all for everybody, whereas we often see that we need to work towards specific customer needs. Because there's so many different requirements that customers have. Businesses are hugely different. Even though they might operate in the same market, there are different needs and different requirements for their end customers. And as you say, they want to keep them happy. So in order to do that as best as possible, we should also target and focus on those specific needs. And one customer might want to initially start small and scale as they grow, whereas other customers want to drive a 24/7 operation with 3 full shifts, being able to continuously work. Automation or robotization are a very, very practical means to an end, or means to actually execute that strategy. And the key to selecting in the end the right technology in there is also hugely beneficial in that, in offering total solutions, is the ability to offer both mobile as well as flexible technologies, depending on the actual needs and requirements of the customer.
How would you recognize where to automate and where not necessary to automate?
Or different levels of automation, of
yes,
course.
exactly.
Yeah.
I mean,
Right, exactly. I mean, one of the factors you could have a look at is if an operation that you regularly execute within a warehouse operation is to see if that is a standardized and a predictive flow. So the more standardized, the more predictive an operation is, the better it lends itself for a form of automation.
I would probably say the more predictive it is, the higher level of automation you can implement.
Right,
so
correct.
the less flexible.
Right.
You can then super
Indeed.
automate it because will remain like that for years. And if it's, let's say, less predictive and you would, let's say, not know exactly how it in 3 years from now would look like, you can probably still automate, but perhaps not to the level, let's say, that you would have with predictive flows.
This is what needs to be analyzed with the customer. So that's also how we approach this, just starting to understand the as is and the current situation, but also taking the business goals into consideration to build then with the customer future-proof warehouse solution.
In the selection in the end of automation, you can go from the more agile, flexible solutions in robotics to automated storage and retrieval systems, which are the fixed storage solutions. Both in the end support goods to person principles, which cut out a vast so-called waste, which is the transport of goods, and transports the goods already towards the logistic personnel or the operator working. And in that sense, automation really supports the operators in executing and making the most efficient use of their time. That increases productivity levels. The operators are also supported in terms of ergonomics to make sure that their health is looked after, and also the software plays a part, as they are continuously interacting with the automation in the end.
Yeah, so basically automation will not remove completely humans' operation in the warehouses, but will support them.
Yes, and we'll have to see how the future develops. Of course, there's a lot of developments going on, but at this point of time, a human factor is tremendously important in the warehouse operation still.
And actually you see also in the different, let's say, eras we already had in the Industrial Revolution, etc. There was always a bit of a fear, hey, this would reduce, let's say, human capacities or human labor, but actually it always changed the way humans were used in those processes. And that's also where we focus ourselves, of course, at Addverb in, so that to have the combination of both.
How does, let's say, this level of automation and logistic personnel interact with one another in an operation?
I think most of the interaction between operators and robots will appear in the mobile robotic area, let's say. And in this area, we have different level of solutions. We have those that are not equipped to move within a human-robot environment. So those robots will be fenced and protected.
There will be limited interaction with them.
Exactly. And then you have the other type of robot, which is AMR, autonomous mobile robotics, which are running with natural navigation and safety sensors to be able to run within a human-robot environment. And then these are highly safe and following all the standards to make sure that there is no risk of harming anyone.
And a common misconception here is that automation is always associated with huge, massive investments, disruptions of the current operations, modifications to the existing infrastructure.
Yeah, I think in this time we have a situation where the economy is not really secure, so everybody is a bit in doubt. Are we now in a recession, or are we still growing, or what's going on? So a lot of companies are a bit hesitating to do large investments. And on the other hand, we still, like we said already before, we still have a labor scarcity situation. So a lot of people see the need to automate without, let's say, having the guts to do a huge investment. And I think that's important also for everybody to understand that there is not a need to always do a huge new building with complete new automation inside and having an investment of 50 or 100 million euro. So you can also start with looking at your existing, let's say, real estate that you have, which we then call brownfield automation, but that you look at, hey, what can we do within the 4 walls that we have today? So you already avoid having the investment in a new building. And even within that existing building, you can then say, hey, perhaps we don't start with a full-blown solution yet, but we start, let's say, with a small piece of automation and scale it up, depending on, let's say, what we said, the predictability for the future, because that defines more or less automation levels. But then also see, okay, if we then grow, we immediately see the benefits of that what we have implemented, and with those benefits, we, let's say, do further investments to scale it. We have different segments with different, let's say, needs, but even within those segments, customers are not the same as well. So they will have different requirements or different capabilities to invest, etc. So we have to design the optimized solution for a specific customer, which can be more or less automated, and that is something I think we are here for, actually, at Addverb.
And if we take the example of one of our expertise, which is the mobile robotics, this is very easy to scale up and to do investments by phase.
Yeah.
So then
Stepwise.
Stepwise, and we can just follow the growth of the customer.
Exactly.
They don't really have to plan 5 years in advance and invest for 5 years in advance. They can invest as per the growth.
Yeah, there is a very high demand on new real estate, warehouse real estate, while on the other hand, the government is restricting the building of new greenfield sites.
Yeah, we also have a nitrogen crisis.
Of course, there's a nitrogen crisis going on. So this all plays in the fact that even though businesses might want to move to a greenfield, they simply cannot, or it will take many years. So optimizing the existing infrastructure or seeing what is still possible within that existing infrastructure.
Hugely important. Yeah.
Exactly.
Now intralogistic processes are playing really a major role in the different businesses. Now companies just don't really have the choice to at least evaluate automation in their business in order to keep competitivity, to be able to cope with the different market changes, with the eventual disruptions, and with the lower availability of manpower. Companies like Addverb, where we can really propose customized integrated solutions, end-to-end solutions, are very important to these kind of customers. Automation industry in the future looks quite promising, and will keep accompanying our customers in their different business cases.